happened this past September, August-September time. Israeli President Perez visited Moscow. Prime Minister Netanyahu visited Moscow. And after meeting with President Medvedev, Netanyahu announced that Medvedev had promised to review the question of delivering S-300s to Iran. And this, of course, was something that just, in other words, you mean you won't deliver these to us because Israel doesn't want you to deliver them? This is just, not what they were hoping for in a strategic partner at all. The Russians have been very disturbed by the persistent anti-Russian aspect of the Green Movement. After Moscow congratulated Ahmadinejad on his re-election, what happened was that a lot of the protesters started shouting "down with Russia" in particular, and it appears that this has been something that Ahmadinejad has been vulnerable on in particular, both in the reformist press and in the conservative press. The one thing they agree upon is that Russia is no friend of Iran. And why is Ahmadinejad and company, why are they moving so close to Russia? Why are they depending on Russia when Russia has demonstrated over and over that it's not a reliable ally? And the fact that this has sort of gained traction, the Russians are like the rest of us. They like to be liked. And seeing that this deep well of anti-Russian sentiment in Iran is not something that they have been happy about. But yet at the same time, they kind of realize that maybe they've boxed themselves in a bit by working with Ahmadinejad so closely. So now the Foreign Minister Lavrov has called for the resolution of the Iranian election issue on the basis of Iranian law. That's the position. In other words, Russia's actually neutral with regard to the election, recognizes whatever the Iranians want to do. This past August, the Iranians were very unhappy because Russia convened a meeting of the Caspian littoral states in Kazakhstan with everyone except Iran. And of course, the Iranian press just made hay about this, that this was, one more sign, of Russia's lack of respect, that basically Russia and its cronies were going to, do what they wanted and then essentially hand something to Iran. This past month in December, Iranians were complaining that Russia has not even built 3 63,000-ton ships for the Caspian that Iran has ordered. They want these vessels, and the Russians haven't delivered. Also, that Iranian trucks are not being allowed through Dagestan. In other words, one of the goals that Russia and Iran have is to sort of create this north-south corridor, so goods can transit from Iran, come from elsewhere in Asia, transit from Iran through the South Caucasus up and through Russia. And the idea is that obviously Iranians hope that their truckers would get a piece of this business, but now what's happened is that not the Russian government, but the Dagestan government is preventing non-CIS trucks, non-Commonwealth of Independent States trucks from going through, and they see this as aimed obviously at Iran. Now, reformist, conservative commentators have criticized Russian policy toward Iran heavily. Iranian government officials have tried to put a positive spin on everything. They've tried to say, oh no, the nuclear reactor really is going to be finished soon, but it's a hard case to make. And certainly this past November, when the Russian energy minister Shmatko announced that the reactor would not be starting in 2009 as promised earlier, but in 2010, the reaction was just absolutely furious. Similarly, when Russia voted in favor of the International Atomic Energy Agency Board of Governors resolution, calling for Iranian uranium to be enriched in Russia, finished off in France, they have been very, very unhappy about this. And the Iranian press was quite gleefully cited a Russian survey. RIA Novosti conducted a survey in which it showed that 93.5% of Iranians have a negative opinion of Russia. And, and the Iranian press was able to discuss in detail just why this might be the case. Several Iranian officials have threatened Russia unless it delivers the S-300 air defense systems, Iran's going to take legal action. I'm not sure that the Russians are going to be very worried about this, but nevertheless, the Iranians are doing this. Now, much more disturbing, I think, from the Russian point of view is that both last month and this month, Ahmadinejad seems to be trying to diffuse accusations that he is too close to Russia by suddenly demanding that Russia pay compensation to Iran for the occupation during World War II. Now, those of you who know about sort of Russian policy on this, Russia doesn't pay compensation to anyone for anything like this. This has been an issue with the Baltic states, and basically, this is not something that the Russians are going to do. They've made this clear, and so Ahmadinejad's bringing this up is not a good sign. In other words, that his reaction to anti-Russian sentiment is to pander to it in Iran. This isn't good at all. Moscow is also unhappy about reports that Kazakhstan would sell enriched uranium to Iran. Russian Foreign Ministry made clear that this was, a violation of international law, and the Kazakhs quickly backed down and said they weren't going to do so. And then most recently, what we've seen, obviously, a couple of months ago, President Medvedev made a very famous statement in which he indicated that, sanctions might have to be imposed on Iran. Now, the Iranians, of course, were furious, but what's been interesting is that since then, everyone but Medvedev has been backtracking on this, and Foreign Minister Lavrov in particular has indicated that sanctions are possible, but this not right now, that the diplomatic course of action has yet to run its course, and if there are to be sanctions, they are to be strictly limited to pursuing the goal of non-proliferation and nothing broader. In other words, the Russians are signaling pretty strongly that any sanctions they support are not going to seriously affect Iran. So this, of course, has made the U.S. Angry because we want them to support stricter sanctions, but it's also made the Iranians angry because they don't want any further sanctions at all. Now, I would like to, if I could, just read to you 4 quotations, 2 from the Russian press, 2 from the Iranian press, just to get a flavor of how they're talking about each other. And the first one that I'd like to read is from my old friend Georgy Mirsky, who has been analyzing Moscow's foreign policy and international relations, especially the Middle East, for over half a century, and is just an extraordinarily prescient analyst, I believe. And basically, he's talking about the Iranian nuclear issue and the possibility that Iran might have nuclear weapons. Now, he says, to try to move Tehran from its position is still possible, and here Russia's role is exceptionally important. We have just seen that even the allusion made by the Russian president to the possibility that Russia will join in solidarity with the West has already played its role in the